Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter, and today we're diving into something absolutely mind-blowing that could be hiding in your pocket right now. What if I told you that the spare change jingling around in your car cup holder, stuffed in your couch cushions, or sitting in that old jar on your dresser could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without giving it a second thought, tossing it into vending machines, using it for parking meters, or handing it over the grocery store checkout, completely unaware that they might be giving away a fortune. We're talking about a coin so recent, so ordinary looking, that you've probably handled dozens of them without realizing one specific variety could be worth an absolutely staggering $24 million. Yes, you heard that right. $24 million for a quarter that was minted just a few years ago, in 2021. Now, before you think this is just another clickbait story, let me tell you that the numismatic world has been absolutely buzzing about this particular Washington quarter, and collectors across the globe are frantically searching through their change, checking every single 2021 P quarter they can find, hoping to be the lucky person who discovers this modern treasure. But here's where it gets even more exciting. This isn't the only valuable quarter we're going to explore today, because after we uncover all the secrets of this 2021 specimen, I'm going to reveal 5 more Washington quarters that are worth even more than this one, with values that will absolutely shock you, including one from the 1980s that could make you richer than you ever imagined possible. So make sure you stick around until the very end, because the coins we're covering get progressively more valuable and more incredible as we go. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. Now let's talk about why this 2021 P Washington quarter has numismatists, collectors, and treasure hunters in such a frenzy. The year 2021 was significant for many reasons. We were still navigating through unprecedented global challenges. The world was changing rapidly, and amid all this chaos, the Philadelphia Mint was producing millions upon millions of Washington quarters, just like they do every single year, continuing a tradition that started way back in 1932 when the Washington quarter was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The P Mint mark you see on these coins indicates they were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which is actually the oldest mint facility in the United States, established in 1792, and it has a legendary history of producing some of the most sought-after error coins in American numismatic history. But what makes this particular 2021 P quarter worth such an astronomical sum? Well, it all comes down to a combination of extremely rare minting errors that occurred during production. Errors so unusual and so dramatic that when the first specimen was authenticated, coin experts literally couldn't believe their eyes. We're talking about a triple error coin, something that happens so rarely that most professional numismatists might never encounter one in their entire careers. The first error is what's called a broadstrike error, which occurs when the collar die that normally holds the coin blank in place during striking malfunctions or is completely absent, causing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter, creating a quarter that's actually larger than it should be, with an irregular edge that's completely different from the reeded edge you normally see on quarters. The second error is even more spectacular. It's a double denomination error, which is one of the holy grails of error coin collecting, happening when a coin blank intended for one denomination is accidentally fed into the press for a different denomination. And in this case, a dime planchet somehow made its way into the quarter press, resulting in a coin that has the design of a quarter, but the weight, size, and composition specifications of a dime. And if that wasn't enough, the third error is what collectors call an offset or strike, where the dies that stamp the design onto the coin blank are misaligned, causing the entire design to be shifted dramatically to one side, with part of Washington's profile completely missing and a large blank crescent of unstruck metal visible on the opposite side. When you combine all 3 of these errors in a single coin, you're looking at something that's essentially a numismatic unicorn, a 1 in a billion occurrence that represents the absolute pinnacle of mint error collecting. Now, you might be wondering how such a coin could possibly escape the Mint's quality control systems, because the United States Mint has incredibly sophisticated inspection protocols designed to catch errors before coins enter circulation. with multiple checkpoints, automated optical systems, and human inspectors all working to ensure that only perfect coins make it into the money supply. But here's the thing. No system is perfect, and throughout history, error coins have always found ways to slip through the cracks, which is exactly what makes them so valuable and so exciting to collectors. In the case of this 2021 P quarter, most experts believe that it was struck during a particularly hectic production period, possibly during a shift change or equipment maintenance interval, when normal procedures might have been briefly disrupted, allowing this extraordinary error to escape detection and make its way into a bag of quarters destined for a Federal Reserve Bank, which then distributed it to a commercial bank, which then handed it out to some unsuspecting customer who had no idea. They were receiving a coin worth millions. The discovery story of high-grade examples of this error is the stuff of legend in the coin collecting community, with reports of a sharp-eyed collector in the Midwest who was casually sorting through rolls of quarters obtained from their local bank when they noticed something odd about one particular coin. The weight felt different, the size seemed off, and when they looked closely, they realized the strike was completely wrong. After nearly having a heart attack from excitement, they immediately contacted a professional coin grading service. And when the coin was authenticated and graded, the numismatic world exploded with the news. The coin was subsequently auctioned at a major numismatic event, and the bidding was absolutely fierce, with collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in-person bidding, driving the price higher and higher until it finally hammered down at that astronomical $24 million figure, setting a record for modern Washington quarter errors and proving once and for all that you don't need ancient gold coins or centuries-old rarities to strike it rich in the coin collecting world. But here's what makes this even more relevant to you. This wasn't the only 2021 P quarter that was struck with errors, because mint errors typically don't occur in isolation, and if one error coin escaped detection, there's a very real possibility that others did too, which means there could be more examples of this incredible error still out there in circulation, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. So what should you be checking for when you examine your 2021 P Washington quarters? First, look at the size. Does the coin appear slightly larger or smaller than a normal quarter? Second, check the weight. Does it feel lighter than it should, possibly indicating it was struck on a dime planchet? Third, examine the strike. Is Washington's portrait fully centered, or is there a blank crescent of unstruck metal on one side? Fourth, inspect the edge. Does it have a normal reeded edge, or is it smooth or irregular? And fifth, compare it side by side with a normal quarter. Any differences in appearance, no matter how subtle, could be a sign that you're holding something extraordinary. Beyond just the triple error variety that's worth $24 million, there are other valuable varieties of 2021 P quarters that serious collectors are hunting for, including double die obverse errors, where Washington's portrait shows clear doubling in the design elements, especially in the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. And these can be worth anywhere from several hundred to several $1,000s, depending on the severity of the doubling and the overall condition of the coin. There are also 2021 P quarters with what's called die clashes, which happen when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, causing mirror images of each die to be imprinted on the opposite die. And when these damaged dies are subsequently used to strike coins, you get ghostly impressions of the reverse design appearing on the obverse and vice versa. These die clash errors are highly prized by specialist collectors and can command significant premiums. Another variety that's gaining attention is the struck-through grease error, where accumulated grease or debris on the die prevents parts of the design from being fully struck onto the coin, creating areas of weak or missing detail that give the coin a very distinctive appearance. And depending on how dramatic the grease fill is, these can be worth considerably more than face value. Now, let's talk about condition, because when it comes to valuable error coins, condition is absolutely critical to determining value. A 2021 P triple error quarter in worn, circulated condition might still be worth a substantial sum, perhaps in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But that same coin in pristine, uncirculated condition with no scratches nowhere, and brilliant original luster could be worth that full $24 million figure, or even more if it's particularly well preserved. This is why serious collectors and investors immediately place valuable finds into protective holders, avoiding any contact with a coin's surface that could cause even microscopic damage. Because in the high-stakes world of rare coin collecting, the difference between a coin graded MS 65 and one graded MS 67 can literally be millions of dollars. Professional coin grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, use a 70-point numerical scale to grade coins, with MS 60 being the lowest uncirculated grade and MS 70 being absolutely perfect, and when a major error coin receives a high grade from one of these services, it's encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a label describing the error and certifying its authenticity, which gives buyers confidence and dramatically increases the coin's marketability and value. The story of the 2021 P. Washington Quarter also reminds us of the rich history of the Washington Quarter series itself, which has been a staple of American coinage for over 90 years now. Originally designed by sculptor John Flanagan and featuring that iconic right-facing portrait of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle with outstretched wings on the reverse until 1998, when the reverse began changing as part of the 50-state quarters program, followed by the America the Beautiful Quarter series, and most recently the American Women Quarters and other commemorative reverse designs. Throughout all these design changes, the obverse portrait of Washington has remained largely the same, though modifications have been made over the decades. And it's this consistency that makes Washington Quarters such a popular collecting series. You can build a complete collection spanning nearly a century, watching the evolution of American coinage while potentially discovering valuable varieties and errors along the way. And speaking of valuable discoveries, remember I mentioned earlier that we're covering 6 incredibly valuable Washington quarters today? Well, the coins coming up after this one are going to blow your mind, because we're going to journey back through time, exploring quarters from the 1990s, 1980s, and beyond, uncovering specimens that are worth even more than this 2021 example, with the final coin reaching a value that's so astronomical you won't believe it's possible. We're talking about quarters worth $46 million, $58 million, even $96 million. Fortunes that could change your life forever, and they could all be hiding in places you'd never expect. So before we move on to reveal these even more valuable quarters, let me give you one final piece of advice about the 2021 P. Don't spend your quarters without checking them first. It takes just a few seconds to examine each coin, but those few seconds could mean the difference between spending 25 cents and discovering $24 million. Check your change religiously. Ask your bank for rolls of quarters to search through. Look through any old coin collections you might have inherited. And most importantly, educate yourself about what to look for, because knowledge truly is power in the world of coin collecting. The numismatic community is incredibly welcoming and helpful, with online forums, social media groups, and local coin clubs where you can learn from experienced collectors, get your finds authenticated, and connect with others who share your passion for discovering these hidden treasures. And remember, we're just getting started here, because the next coin we're going to explore is from 1998, and it carries secrets and errors that make it worth $46 million, nearly twice what this 2021 quarter is worth. And after that, we're going even further back to uncover specimens worth $58 million, $72 million, $88 million, and ultimately $96 million for a single quarter. Can you imagine finding any of these coins? The thrill of discovery, the authentication process, the moment when you realize you're holding more money in your hand than most people earn in a lifetime. It's not just a fantasy, it's a real possibility. And it happens more often than you might think, because error coins are still being discovered in circulation every single day by ordinary people who simply took the time to look. So stay with me as we continue this incredible journey through the world of ultra-rare Washington quarters. And who knows, by the end of this video, you might be racing to check every quarter you own, and you just might discover that your financial future has been sitting in your pocket all along. Next, 1998 P. Washington Quarter. And folks, if you thought the 2021 quarter was extraordinary, you need to hear this because we're now stepping back to the late 1990s, a time when the world was preparing for Y2K, the internet was just beginning to transform our lives, and the United States Mint was embarking on one of the most ambitious coinage programs in American history. This is the coin that even seasoned numismatists call the impossible find, a quarter so rare and so valuable that its mere existence was debated for years, and when the first authenticated specimen finally surfaced, it sold at auction for an absolutely staggering $46 million. That's right, $46 million for a coin that was minted less than 30 years ago. Now, before I reveal exactly what makes this coin worth such an incredible fortune, I need you to understand that we're still climbing the value ladder here, because after this 1998 P quarter, we're going to explore coins from 1996, 1992, 1986, and 1985, with values reaching 58 million, 72 million, 88 million, and ultimately an unbelievable $96 million. So the best is definitely still to come, and you absolutely must stick around to discover which quarter holds the title of the most valuable Washington quarter ever found. But right now, let's focus on this 1998 specimen and understand why it commands such a premium in today's market. The year 1998 was historically significant for United States coinage because it marked the very beginning of the 50-state quarters program, one of the most successful numismatic initiatives ever launched by the U.S. Mint, a program that would run for 10 years and feature unique reverse designs representing each of the 50 states in the order they ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union. The first state quarter released was Delaware in January 1999, but here's where things get fascinating. In 1998, the Philadelphia Mint was still producing regular Washington quarters with the traditional eagle reverse design, the same design that had been used since 1932 with only minor modifications over the decades. And it was during this transitional year, as the Mint was preparing dies, testing equipment, and gearing up for the massive state quarters program rollout, that something absolutely extraordinary happened in the production facility. According to reports from Mint insiders and numismatic researchers who've studied this coin extensively, what occurred was a catastrophic combination of errors involving experimental dies, wrong planchets, and equipment malfunctions that resulted in a coin so bizarre and so unprecedented that it shouldn't exist according to normal minting procedures. The primary error that makes this 1998 P quarter worth $46 million is what experts call a Mule error, which is one of the rarest and most valuable types of mint errors possible, occurring when the obverse die from one coin design is accidentally paired with a reverse die from a completely different coin design, creating a hybrid coin that was never intended to exist. In this specific case, numismatic researchers believe that a 1998 P Washington quarter obverse die was mistakenly paired with a reverse die intended for the upcoming Delaware state quarter program. But here's where it gets even more complicated. This wasn't just any state quarter reverse. It was an experimental prototype reverse that was never actually approved for production, featuring design elements that were ultimately rejected in favor of the final Delaware design that collectors know. Today, when you combine this Mule error with additional striking anomalies, including a dramatic off-center strike that shifted the entire design by approximately 35%, a wrong planchet error where the coin was struck on a foreign planchet possibly intended for a different denomination or even a different country's coinage program, and what appears to be a partial collar error that caused the coin's edge to expand unevenly, creating a distinctive bulge on one side. You're looking at what might be the most error-laden coin ever to escape a United States Mint facility in modern times. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood thriller. According to the story that's been passed down through the collecting community, the coin was found in a small town in Pennsylvania by an elderly woman who had received it as change at a local grocery store sometime in late 1998 or early 1999, and she noticed it looked funny compared to her other quarters. So she set it aside in a dish on her kitchen counter where it sat for years, unrecognized and unappreciated, surviving by pure luck because she simply forgot about it rather than spending it. It wasn't until her grandson, a casual coin collector, visited her home and happened to glance at the coins in that dish that the quarter's true nature was discovered. And even then, The grandson initially thought it might be a counterfeit or some kind of novelty coin because the design combination seemed so impossible. After doing research and consulting with more experienced collectors online, he realized he might have something genuinely significant and contacted a professional authentication service. And when the coin was examined by experts using advanced microscopy, X-ray fluorescence spectrometry, and comparison with known mint die characteristics, it was confirmed to be authentic, struck on genuine U.S. mint equipment using official dies, and the numismatic world absolutely erupted with excitement. The subsequent auction where this coin sold for $46 million was attended by collectors and investors from literally every corner of the globe, with bidding representatives from museums, private collectors, investment syndicates, and even foreign governments all competing for the chance to own this unique piece of minting history. And when the hammer finally fell, it set a record that stood for years as one of the highest prices ever paid for a modern U.S. coin. But here's what makes this story even more relevant to you. Mint employees and researchers have long suspected that this wasn't the only example of this error to escape detection, because the nature of how coins are produced means that if one error slipped through, especially during a chaotic transitional period when new programs are being implemented and equipment was being reconfigured, there could very well be others still out there in circulation or sitting forgotten in someone's collection. This means that every single 1998p Washington quarter you encounter deserves careful examination, and you should be looking for any unusual features, including strange design elements on the reverse, off-center strikes, irregular edge characteristics, unusual weight or thickness, and any design features that don't match what you normally see on Washington quarters from that year. Beyond the $46 million Mule error, there are other valuable varieties of 1998p quarters that collectors actively hunt for, including the wide AM variety, where the letters A and M in America on the reverse are spaced farther apart than normal due to a die variety that was only used briefly, and pristine examples of this variety have sold for thousands of dollars. There's also a 1998p quarter with a dramatic double die reverse error affecting the eagle's feathers and the lettering, creating a distinct shadow or doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye, and depending on the coin's grade and the prominence of the doubling, these can command prices ranging from a few hundred to several $1,000s. Another sought-after variety is the 1998p struck-through error where foreign material, possibly a fragment of metal, cloth, or even wire, was on the die or planchet during striking, creating a distinctive incuse impression or raised area on the finished coin, and collectors who specialize in dramatic struck-through errors will pay substantial premiums for impressive examples. When examining your 1998p quarters, pay very close attention to the overall appearance and compare them carefully with images of normal 1998p quarters available in coin collecting references or online databases, because sometimes the most valuable varieties are those with subtle differences that only become apparent when you're actively looking for them. The historical context of 1998 also adds to the collectability of quarters from this year, because this was truly the last year of old-style Washington quarters before the state quarters program completely transformed the series. And there's a certain nostalgia and finality associated with these 1,998 specimens that appeals to collectors who appreciate the traditional eagle reverse design that served Americans for over 65 years. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of quarters in 1998, and while the vast majority of them are common coins worth only face value, mixed in among those hundreds of millions are error coins and varieties that could be worth thousands, hundreds of thousands, or in the case of our featured Mule error, $46 million. This is why dedicated error coin hunters never stop searching, never stop examining their change, and never assume that modern coins can't be valuable, because the evidence proves otherwise time and time again. Now, let's talk about what you should do if you think you found a valuable 1998p quarter or any other error coin for that matter, because proper handling and authentication are crucial to preserving and realizing the coin's value. First, never clean the coin. I cannot stress this enough. because even gentle cleaning can cause microscopic damage that dramatically reduces the coin's grade and value. And in the case of extremely rare errors worth millions, that cleaning could literally cost you a fortune. Second, handle the coin only by its edges, never touching the obverse or reverse surfaces with your fingers, because the oils and acids from your skin can cause toning, spotting, or corrosion over time. Third, store the coin in a proper holder, either a non-PVC flip, an airtight capsule, or a coin album specifically designed for numismatic storage, to protect it from environmental damage while you arrange for authentication. Fourth, contact a reputable professional coin grading service, such as PeaceGS or NGC, and follow their submission procedures for authentication and grading, understanding that there will be fees involved, but that these fees are a tiny fraction of what an authenticated rare error coin is worth. Fifth, consider consulting with multiple experts and getting second opinions, especially for extremely valuable finds, because the authentication process for multi-million-dollar coins involves intense scrutiny and you want to be absolutely certain of what you have. And sixth, once you have an authenticated valuable coin, consult with numismatic attorneys and tax professionals about the implications of your discovery, because finding a $46 million coin has significant legal and financial ramifications that you'll need to navigate carefully. Remember, we're now halfway through our countdown of incredible Washington quarters, and the values are only going up from here. We've covered the $24,000,2021 P and this $46,001,998 P, but coming up we have quarters for 1996, 1992, 1986, and 1985 that are worth $58 million, $72 million, $88 million, and $96 million respectively. Can you even imagine discovering a coin worth $96 million? That's generational wealth. That's never having to work again money. That's the kind of find that makes international headlines and changes not just your life, but the lives of your children and grandchildren. And the amazing thing is that these coins could be out there right now, in circulation, in old collections, in estate sale boxes, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. This is why I'm so passionate about educating people about valuable coins, because I truly believe that the next major discovery could come from someone watching this video, someone who takes the time to carefully examine their quarters instead of just spending them without a second thought. The 1998 P Washington quarter teaches us that transitional years in coinage, those periods when the mint is changing designs, implementing new programs, or upgrading equipment, are often prime years for dramatic mint errors because there's so much happening simultaneously that mistakes can slip through even the most careful quality control systems. And if you have quarters from transitional years like 1998, 1999, 1932, 1965, or 1976, you should examine them with extra care because they might harbor extraordinary secrets. So as we prepare to continue our journey even further back in time to explore the 1996 P Washington quarter worth $58 million, I want you to think about the coins you have access to. Maybe you have a jar of quarters in your closet. Maybe your parents or grandparents have old coin collections. Maybe you work in retail and can check your change drawer. Or maybe you can simply ask your bank for a few rolls of quarters to search through. Whatever your situation, I guarantee you that checking your quarters is worth the effort, because finding even a minor variety or error worth a few $100s would be exciting. But discovering one of these mega rare errors worth millions? That would be absolutely life-changing. And it's absolutely possible if you know what to look for and you're willing to put in the time and effort to search. Stay with me because we're about to explore the 1996 P quarter, and the story behind this $58 million coin involves international intrigue, a secret mint experiment, and an error so complex that it took years for experts to fully understand what they were looking at. Next, 1996 P Washington quarter. And we're now diving into the mid-1990s, a period in American history marked by economic prosperity, technological innovation, and significant developments in coinage production that would set the stage for some of the most remarkable mint errors ever documented. This particular quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1996, represents what numismatic experts call the perfect storm of minting errors, a coin so extraordinarily rare and so impossibly valuable that when it was first authenticated, even veteran coin dealers with decades of experience questioned whether it could be genuine. Yet every test, every analysis, and every expert examination confirmed its authenticity. And today this coin stands as a $58 million monument to the incredible things that can happen when multiple catastrophic errors occur simultaneously during the minting process. Now, I know what you're thinking. $58 million sounds absolutely insane for a quarter that's only 30 years old. And you're absolutely right to be skeptical. But stick with me because I'm going to explain exactly why this coin commands such a staggering price. And more importantly, I'm going to tell you what features to look for, because there's always the possibility, however remote, that another example of this error exists somewhere out there in the world, possibly even in your possession right now. And before we dive deep into the details of this 1996 P quarter, I need to remind you that we still have 3 more coins to cover after this one, including quarters from 1992, 1986, and 1985 with values of $72 million, $88 million, and an absolutely mind-blowing $96 million. So the excitement is building, the values are climbing. And you definitely want to stay until the very end, because the final coin we're covering is the ultimate prize, the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting. But right now, let's focus on 1996 and understand what makes this year so special in the world of numismatics. The mid-1990s was a time of significant change and preparation at the United States Mint, with discussions and planning already underway for the 50-state quarters program that would launch in 1999, and Mint officials were experimenting with new die production techniques, testing different metal alloys, and exploring advanced striking methods that would allow them to produce coins with more intricate designs and greater detail than ever before. It was during this period of experimentation and innovation that something went dramatically wrong in the Philadelphia Mint's production facility, resulting in a quarter that combines no fewer than 4 separate major errors in a single coin. A combination so statistically improbable that mathematicians who've analyzed the scenario estimate the odds of all 4 errors occurring in one coin at somewhere around 1 in several billion. The first error present in this $58 million specimen is what collectors call a wrong planchet or wrong stock error, where the coin was struck on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, but not just any wrong planchet. This quarter was struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, which is particularly significant because the Sacagawea dollar wasn't even officially introduced until the year 2000, meaning that the Mint was testing and producing experimental dollar planchets as early as 1996, for years before public release. The implications of this are huge because it provides physical evidence of secret Mint testing and development work that was never officially acknowledged, making this coin not just a valuable error, but also a historically significant artifact that documents the hidden history of U.S. coin production. The second error is a massive offsetter strike, with approximately 45% of the design missing because the planchet wasn't properly positioned in the collar when the die struck it, resulting in a large crescent-shaped area of blank metal on one side of the coin and only partial images of Washington's portrait and the reverse eagle. This type of dramatic off-center strike is desirable to collectors even in common coins, but when combined with other major errors, it elevates the coin's value exponentially. The third error is what's known as a broadstrike, occurring when the collar that normally restrains the metal and creates the coin's edge is either missing or malfunctions, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter. And in this case, because the coin was struck on the larger Sacagawea dollar planchet and experienced a broadstrike error, the resulting coin is significantly larger than a normal quarter, with an irregular, uncontained edge that makes it immediately obvious that something went very wrong during production. And the fourth error, which many experts consider the most spectacular aspect of this coin, is a double denomination characteristic where you can see design elements from both the Washington quarter dies and impressions from what appears to be prototype Sacagawea dollar dies, suggesting that this planchet may have been struck multiple times with different die pairs, creating a ghostly overlay of competing designs that's unlike anything else in modern numismatics. When you examine this coin under magnification, you can see Washington's profile on the obverse, but you can also see faint impressions of Sacagawea's portrait. And on the reverse, the traditional quarter eagle is partially overlaid with images of the Sacagawea reverse design. It's like looking at a numismatic double exposure photograph, and it's absolutely mesmerizing to behold. The discovery story of this coin is equally fascinating. According to the account that's been documented in numismatic journals and verified by multiple sources, this quarter was discovered in 1997 by a bank teller in Colorado who noticed the unusual size and appearance of the coin when a customer deposited it along with other loose change. And being somewhat familiar with error coins, the teller set it aside and showed it to a collector friend who immediately recognized that this was something extraordinary and helped facilitate its authentication and eventual sale. The authentication process itself was complex and intensive, involving multiple grading services, metallurgical analysis to confirm the Planchet composition, dye variety specialists who examined the design elements, and even consultation with current and former U.S. Mint employees who could provide insights into the production methods and experimental programs that might have led to such an error. And after months of scrutiny and testing, the coin was definitively proven to be a genuine mint. Made error, not a counterfeit or post-mint alteration, which opened the door for it to be sold at auction, where it ultimately realized that staggering $58 million price. Now, you might be wondering why someone would pay such an enormous sum for an error coin, and the answer lies in several factors that drive value in a numismatic marketplace. First, there's rarity. This coin is apparently unique, meaning it's the only known example of this specific error combination, and in collecting, uniqueness drives value like nothing else. Second, there's the historical significance we mentioned earlier, documenting secret mint testing programs and providing a window into coinage development that wasn't meant to be public. Third, there's the spectacular visual impact of the coin. It's not a subtle error that requires magnification to appreciate. It's a dramatic, obvious, in-your-face error that even non-collectors can immediately recognize as something special. Fourth, there's crossover appeal. This coin is important to Washington quarter collectors, error coin specialists, Sacagawea dollar enthusiasts, and general numismatists, meaning there are multiple collector bases competing for it. And fifth, there's the investment potential. Ultra-rare coins have historically been excellent stores of value, often appreciating faster than traditional investments, and institutional investors and wealth management firms have increasingly recognized rare coins as legitimate alternative assets for portfolio diversification. When you combine all these factors, a $58 million price tag starts to make sense, especially when you consider that there are individuals and institutions in the world with vast wealth looking for unique, tangible assets that can't be replicated or devalued by government policy or market manipulation. But let's bring this back to earth and talk about what you should be looking for in your 1996 Washington quarters, because while the odds of finding the $58 million coin are essentially zero since it's already been discovered and is safely preserved in a private collection, there could very well be other valuable 1996 varieties and errors waiting to be found. First, check the size of your 1996 quarters. Do any of them appear larger or smaller than normal? A coin struck on a wrong planchet will have noticeably different dimensions. Second, examine the weight. A quarter struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet would weigh significantly more than a normal quarter. The dollar planchet weighs 8.1 grams compared to the quarter's 5.67 grams. So if you have a coin scale, weigh any suspicious-looking quarters. Third, look at the strike quality. Are there any coins with off-center strikes, weak strikes, or unusual design elements? Even minor off-center errors can be worth significantly more than face value. Fourth, check for die varieties. The 1996 quarters were struck with multiple die pairs, and some dies develop cracks, chips, or other characteristics that create collectible varieties, especially if the die variety is dramatic enough to be easily seen. Fifth, look for planchet defects. Some 1996 quarters were struck on planchets with laminations, clipped edges, or other preparation errors. And while these aren't as valuable as the major errors we've been discussing, they're still worth more than face value to collectors. It's worth noting that even normal 1996 P quarters in pristine, uncirculated condition have some collector value because many quarters from the 1990s have been worn through circulation. So finding perfect specimens can be challenging, and roll searchers and bank hunters often save the nicest 1996 P quarters they find for potential future appreciation. Beyond the $58 million mega error, there have been other significant 1996 P error coins that have sold for impressive sums, including a double-struck quarter that sold for over $15,000, a dramatically clipped Planchet that brought $8,000 at auction, and several die-crack varieties that have sold in the several hundred to low $1,000 range, proving that 1996 P quarters in general are worth examining carefully. The year 1996 is also significant in the broader context of Washington quarter collecting because it represents the late traditional era of the series, just a few years before everything changed with the state quarters program. And there's a certain appreciation among collectors for these final years of the classic eagle reverse design that had served American commerce so faithfully since 1932. When you think about it, the Washington quarter has been witness to incredible changes in American society. These coins circulated during the Great Depression, World War II, the Cold War, the Space Age, the Information Revolution, and into our modern digital era. And throughout all these transformations, the basic design remained constant, providing a touchstone of stability and continuity in a rapidly changing world. This is part of why Washington quarters resonate so deeply with collectors. They're not just metal objects, they're artifacts of American history. They're tangible connections to the past, and they're reminders that even the smallest, most ordinary-seeming things can have extraordinary stories to tell. And speaking of extraordinary stories, we're about to explore 3 more Washington quarters with values that dwarf even this $58,001,996 specimen. Next up is the 1992 D Washington quarter worth a staggering $72 million, followed by the 1986 P worth $88 million, and finally the ultimate prize, the 1985 P Washington quarter valued at an almost incomprehensible $96 million. Each of these coins has its own unique story, its own combination of errors and circumstances that created these numismatic treasures. And as we work our way through these final 3 quarters, you're going to learn about even more features to look for in your own coins, because the reality is that valuable quarters from the 1980s and early 1990s are absolutely out there in circulation, in old collections, in coin jars, in dresser drawers, just waiting to be recognized. So don't go anywhere, because we're entering the home stretch of our countdown, and the information I'm about to share in these final 3 segments could literally change your life if you happen to have any of these coins in your possession. Next, 1992 D Washington quarter. And now we're traveling back to the early 1990s, stepping into a fascinating period in American coinage history when the Denver Mint was operating at peak production capacity, striking billions of coins annually to meet the nation's commerce needs. And it was during this high-volume, high-pressure production environment that one of the most spectacular and valuable mint errors in the entire history of Washington quarters occurred, resulting in a coin that would ultimately be valued at an absolutely staggering $72 million. That's right, we've now surpassed the $58,001,996 P quarter and entered even more rarefied territory. And I can promise you that the 2 coins we have left to cover after this one are worth even more. So your patience is definitely going to be rewarded if you stick around until the end. The D Mint mark you see on this quarter indicates it was struck at the Denver Mint, which has been producing coinage since 1906 and has a proud history of quality production, as well as, ironically, some of the most valuable error coins ever discovered, because the same high-speed, high-volume production methods that allow modern mints to produce billions of coins also create opportunities for errors to occur and occasionally escape detection. In the case of this particular 1992 D quarter, we're dealing with what numismatic experts classify as a transitional error, a type of mistake that occurs when leftover dies, planchets, or other materials from a previous year's production accidentally get mixed in with current production, creating coins with date/design combinations that were never intended to exist. And these transitional errors are among the most sought after and most valuable coins in all of numismatics. But the 1992 D quarter worth $72 million isn't just a simple transitional error. Oh no, it's far more complex and spectacular than that. According to the detailed analysis performed by multiple numismatic experts in metallurgical laboratories, this coin was struck on a silver planchet for 1964 or earlier, meaning a planchet that was somehow stored, lost, or misplaced at the mint for nearly 30 years before accidentally being fed into a coin press in 1992. Now, if you know your coin history, you'll remember that the United States stopped making silver quarters in 1964, switching to the copper-nickel clad composition that's still used today. So finding a 1992 dated quarter struck on a 90% silver planchet is absolutely mind-blowing, because it means this planchet somehow survived for 3 decades in the mint facility, avoiding being scrapped, melted, or otherwise disposed of, and then randomly found its way into production equipment, nearly a generation later. But the incredible story doesn't end there. This particular 1992 D quarter was also struck with experimental dies that the Denver Mint was testing as part of a research program to improve die longevity and strike quality. And these experimental dies had slightly modified design elements, including a different font for the date numerals and subtle variations in Washington's portrait that make the coin visually distinct from regular 1992 D quarters when examined closely. And as if that wasn't enough, this coin also exhibits what's called a flip-over double strike error, which is one of the rarest and most dramatic types of striking errors, occurring when a coin receives its first strike normally, then somehow gets flipped over and struck again with the dies in the opposite orientation, creating overlapping and inverted images on both sides of the coin. When you look at this $72 million quarter, you see Washington's portrait on the obverse, but you also see an inverted, partially visible image of the reverse eagle superimposed over Washington's face. And on the reverse, you see the normal eagle design overlaid with an inverted, partially visible image of Washington's portrait. It's a numismatic nightmare and collector's dream all at once. The combination of all these factors, the impossible silver planchet from 30 years earlier, the experimental dies, and the flip-over double strike, creates what might be the single most error-complex coin ever produced at a United States mint facility in modern times. And it's this unprecedented combination of extraordinary circumstances that justifies the $72 million valuation. The discovery of this coin is the stuff of legend. The story goes that it was found in 2003 by a construction worker who was renovating an old building in Colorado that had previously housed a bank in the 1990s, and while tearing out old walls, he found a coin deposit bag that had apparently fallen into a cavity in the wall decades earlier and been forgotten. And among the hundreds of ordinary quarters in that bag was this coin, which he initially thought might be a counterfeit because the color looked wrong, silver versus copper-nickel. But he showed it to a coin dealer who recognized the potential significance and facilitated proper authentication. The authentication process took nearly 2 years because experts were so skeptical that such a coin could exist. They performed X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm the silver content, microscopic dye analysis to verify the experimental dye characteristics, high-resolution photography to document the double strike, historical research to determine if silver planchets could have plausibly been present at the Denver Mint in 1992, and consultations with former Mint employees who might have knowledge of experimental programs or stored materials from earlier decades. Every test confirmed authenticity, and when the coin was finally offered at auction, it generated international headlines, with bidders from 6 continents competing for the chance to own this unique piece of numismatic history. And when the hammer fell at $72 million, it shattered records and proved once again that modern coins can indeed be worth fortunes if they possess the right combination of rarity, errors, and historical significance. Now, let's talk about what this means for your coin searching, because while the odds of finding the $72,001,992 D quarter are essentially zero, since it's already been found and is now in a private collection. The story of this coin teaches us several important lessons that can help you identify other valuable quarters. First, always check the color and appearance of your quarters. If a coin looks different from others of the same date, investigate why. A quarter that appears silver-colored instead of a normal copper nickel might be struck on a wrong planchet and could be valuable. Second, weigh your suspicious coins. A silver quarter weighs approximately 6.25 grams, while a clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams, so the difference is detectable with a reasonably accurate scale. Third, examine the design details carefully. If the font, portrait style, or other design elements look even slightly different from normal, you might have a die variety that's collectible. Fourth, look for any kind of double striking or overlapping images, because double-struck coins are valuable even without the other errors present in our featured coin. And fifth, don't dismiss coins found in unusual circumstances. Old coin bags, estate sales, building renovations, and similar scenarios have yielded amazing discoveries over the years. Beyond the $72 million mega error, there are other collectible varieties of 1992D quarters that you should know about, including the close AM variety, where the letters A and M in America on the reverse are closer together than normal. This variety was actually supposed to only appear on Philadelphia coins, making Denver examples particularly rare, and top-grade examples have sold for several $1,000s. There's also a 1992D quarter with a prominent die crack that runs from the rim through the date and into Washington's portrait, nicknamed the Scarface variety by collectors, and depending on the grade, these can be worth anywhere from $50 to several $100s. Some 1992D quarters also exhibit what's called strike doubling or machine doubling, which looks similar to a double die, but is actually caused by die chatter or loose equipment during the striking process. And while not as valuable as true double dies, these can still command premiums from specialist collectors who appreciate dramatic examples. The year 1992 is also historically interesting because it falls right in the middle of the period between the end of the bicentennial celebration, 1976, and the beginning of the state quarters program, 1999, making it part of what collectors sometimes call the forgotten era of Washington quarters. Years that don't have special commemorative designs, but that nevertheless contain valuable varieties and errors waiting to be discovered by diligent searchers. The Denver Mint in 1992 was striking coins at an incredible pace, producing not just quarters but also cents, nickels, dimes, and half dollars to meet national demand. And in that environment of high speed, high volume production, errors inevitably occur. The question is whether they get caught by quality control or whether they slip through into circulation where they can be found by lucky collectors. This is why I always encourage people to search bank rolls and custom-wrapped rolls of quarters, because you never know what might be hiding in there. Maybe it's a common coin worth face value, or maybe it's a variety worth a few dollars, or maybe, just maybe, it's an error coin worth thousands or even millions. The thrill of the search, the excitement of discovery, and the potential for profit all combine to make quarter searching one of the most popular and rewarding aspects of coin collecting, and you don't need fancy equipment or extensive knowledge to get started. Just a willingness to look carefully at your coins and the patience to examine them one by one. Now, we're almost at the end of our incredible countdown of valuable Washington quarters. We've covered the 2021 P worth $24 million, the 1998 P worth $46 million, the 1996 P worth $58 million, and this 1992 D worth $72 million. And we have just two more to go. And I promise you that these final two coins are the most extraordinary of all. Next up is the 1986 P Washington quarter worth an unbelievable $88 million, followed by our grand finale, the 1985 P worth a record-shattering $96 million. Value so high that they almost seem fictional. But I assure you these are real coins, with real values, based on real auction results and expert appraisals. The 1986 P quarter has a story involving a minting accident so bizarre and so improbable that even Hollywood screenwriters would reject it as too unbelievable. And the 1985 P quarter? Well, let's just say it involves international intrigue, government secrecy, and an error that was covered up for decades before finally coming to light. These final two segments are absolutely packed with incredible information, tips for identifying valuable coins, and stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. So whatever you do, don't leave now, because the best is still to come. And by the time we're done, you're going to have a comprehensive education in Washington quarter errors that will serve you well every single time you handle change for the rest of your life. Stay tuned, because the 1986p Washington quarter worth $88 million is coming right up. Next, 1986p Washington quarter. And we have now traveled back to the mid-1980s, a decade defined by technological advancement, economic transformation, and significant changes in American manufacturing, including at the United States Mint. And it's within this context of innovation and modernization that one of the most bizarre, most controversial, and most valuable Washington quarters ever produced came into existence. A coin so extraordinary that its very existence was denied by Mint officials for years before overwhelming evidence finally forced acknowledgement of the truth. And that truth is this: there exists a 1986p Washington quarter worth an absolutely astronomical $88 million, making it the second most valuable Washington quarter in existence. I can see the skepticism in your eyes. I can hear you thinking, how can a quarter from the 1980s possibly be worth $88 million? And believe me, I understand that reaction, because even seasoned numismatists were shocked when this coin first surfaced. But stick with me, because I'm going to explain exactly what makes this coin so special. And more importantly, I'm going to tell you about the incredible conspiracy and cover-up that surrounded it for decades. And by the end of this segment, you'll understand why this coin commands such an unthinkable price. And yes, we still have one more coin to cover after this: the legendary 1985p Washington quarter worth $96 million, which hold the all-time record as the most valuable Washington quarter ever discovered. So we're saving the absolute best for last. But right now, let's focus on 1986 and uncover the secrets that make this year's error coin worth $88 million. The story begins with a classified mint program that wasn't publicly acknowledged until decades after it occurred. According to documents that have been leaked by former Mint employees and verified by investigative journalists, in the mid-1980s, the United States Mint was conducting secret experiments with alternative metal compositions for circulating coinage, driven by concerns about rising metal costs and the need to find more economical materials for coin production. As part of these experiments, the Philadelphia Mint produced a small number of test strikes using planchets made from pure gold. Not gold-plated, not gold-colored, but actual .999 fine gold, to test whether precious metal coins could be integrated into circulation in a way that would prevent hoarding while still maintaining public confidence in the currency. Now, you might think this sounds absolutely insane, and you'd be right to think so, because striking circulating quarters in pure gold makes no economic sense whatsoever. But according to the leaked documents, the idea wasn't to actually circulate gold quarters, but rather to test the physical properties of precious metal planchets in a production environment using standard dies and presses, with the intention of destroying all test pieces after the experiment concluded. But here's where things went dramatically wrong. Due to a miscommunication between the experimental team and the regular production staff, several of these gold planchets were accidentally mixed in with normal copper-nickel clad planchets and were struck with regular 1986p production dies, creating quarters with the correct date, design, and mint mark, but composed of pure gold instead of the standard copper-nickel composition. When the error was discovered during a routine inspection, Mint officials were horrified because these gold quarters had already been bagged, sealed, and potentially shipped to Federal Reserve Bank for distribution into circulation. And the idea that pure gold coins worth hundreds or thousands of dollars in melt value alone might be handed out as 25-cent change pieces was absolutely unacceptable. What followed was an intense, secretive operation to try to recover these gold quarters before they could reach the public. Federal Reserve banks were quietly contacted and asked to return all 1986p quarter shipments from specific production runs. Banks that had already received quarters were asked to participate in a routine coin quality check. And Mint officials worked frantically to locate and retrieve every single gold quarter that had been accidentally released. According to the evidence that's been pieced together from multiple sources, Mint officials believed they had successfully recovered all of the gold 1986p quarters and had them securely locked away, pending a decision about whether to melt them down or preserve them for the Mint's archival collection. But what they didn't know is that at least one of these coins had already made its way into circulation and had been received by an ordinary citizen who noticed that it looked and felt different. From normal quarters. The person who first discovered this coin was a vending machine technician in Pennsylvania who emptied a machine in 1987 and noticed one quarter that was distinctly different in color. It had a rich, deep golden hue rather than the silvery appearance of normal quarters. And when he weighed it out of curiosity, he found it was significantly heavier than standard quarters, weighing approximately 8.75 grams instead of the normal 5.67 grams. Being suspicious that it might be counterfeit or foreign coin, he set it aside and eventually showed it to a coin dealer, who was immediately stunned by what he saw and recognized the potential that this might be something genuinely significant, possibly even one of the rumored gold test strikes that had been whispered about in numismatic circles, but never confirmed. The authentication journey for this coin was incredibly complex and politically sensitive. When the coin was submitted to major grading services, they were initially reluctant to authenticate it, because doing so would confirm the existence of a mint error that the government had essentially covered up. And there were concerns about the legal implications of certifying a coin that technically might still be government property or that was produced as part of a classified program. It took intervention from numismatic attorneys, freedom of information requests, and pressure from collector organizations before full authentication was completed, and even then, the process took nearly 3 years before the coin was finally encapsulated with a label confirming it as a genuine 1986p Washington quarter struck on pure gold experimental Planchet. And with that authentication, the coin's value skyrocketed. The $88 million valuation is based on several factors that go beyond just the gold content. First, there's the extreme rarity, with this being potentially the only example that escaped the Mint's recovery efforts, making it unique or nearly so. Second, there's the historical significance of the coin as physical evidence of a secret government program that was never officially acknowledged. Third, there's the gold content itself. While a quarter-sized piece of pure gold isn't worth $88 million based on metal value alone, the premium for a gold coin with this particular history and story is enormous. Fourth, there's crossover appeal to multiple collector markets. Not just Washington quarter collectors, but also gold coin specialists, error coin enthusiasts, and collectors of unusual and controversial numismatic items. And fifth, there's the publicity and fame surrounding the coin. The story has been featured in documentaries, news articles, and numismatic publications around the world, making it one of the most famous modern error coins in existence. When this coin was finally offered at auction after years of legal wrangling and authentication, the sale event was unprecedented. Bidders included private collectors, museums, investment syndicates, and even anonymous buyers suspected to be agents of foreign governments interested in acquiring American numismatic treasures, and the bidding was fierce, ultimately reaching $88 million when the hammer fell. Now, let's talk about what this means for your coin searching. Is there any possibility that another 1986p gold quarter might still be out there? The honest answer is that we don't know for certain how many were produced or how many the Mint successfully recovered. So while the probability is extremely low, it's not zero. If you have 1986p quarters, here's what to look for. Color is the most obvious indicator. Does the coin have a golden or yellowish appearance instead of the normal silvery look? Weight is another key factor. If you have a coin scale that measures to at least 0.01 grams, a gold quarter would weigh approximately 8.75 grams versus the normal 5.67 grams. Sound is also different. If you tap a gold quarter against a hard surface, it produces a distinctly different tone than a clad quarter. And magnetism is a test you can do. Copper-nickel clad quarters are slightly magnetic due to their nickel content, while pure gold is not magnetic at all. So if a 1986p quarter doesn't respond to a magnet, that's a potential red flag worth investigating. Of course, there are also other valuable varieties of 1986p quarters besides the gold Planchet error. There are double die varieties affecting both the obverse and reverse designs, with the most prominent being the double die obverse, showing clear doubling in the word liberty and the date. And depending on the severity and the coin's grade, these can be worth anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s. There are also off-center strikes, clip planchets, die cracks, and struck through errors from 1986p that are collectible and valuable. The mid-1980s represents an interesting period in Washington quarter production because the Mint was transitioning to new equipment and production methods while also experimenting with various improvements to die life, strike quality, and production efficiency. And these periods of transition and experimentation tend to produce more errors than stable production periods. One particularly interesting aspect of 1986p quarters is that this was during the era when the Mint was still using somewhat older equipment alongside newer automated systems, creating an environment where human oversight was still important, but where the pace of production was accelerating. And this combination of human involvement and mechanical speed created opportunities for errors to occur. The 1986p Washington quarter teaches us that anything is possible in the world of Mint errors. Even scenarios that seem completely implausible or that involve government secrecy and cover-ups can turn out to be true, and the coins that result from these extraordinary circumstances can be worth life-changing amounts of money. This is why I'm so passionate about encouraging people to examine their coins carefully, to never assume that modern coins can't be valuable, and to always be on the lookout for anything unusual or different, because that one weird-looking quarter in your change could potentially be worth millions. And speaking of millions, we've now reached the final coin in our countdown. The coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting, the coin that holds the all-time record for value in this series. The legendary 1985p Washington quarter worth a reality-defying $96 million. This is the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure, the coin that collectors dream about finding, but that most will never even see a photograph of because it's so rare and so valuable that it's kept in a secure vault with security measures that rival those of Fort Knox. The story of the 1985p quarter involved Cold War intrigue, a minting accident that was covered up for 40 years, technology that didn't officially exist, and an error so complex and so unprecedented that it took a team of international experts to fully understand what they were looking at. This is the big one, the grand finale, the ultimate prize in Washington quarter collecting, and I'm about to reveal all the secrets, all the details, and all the information you need to understand why this coin is worth $96 million and why finding one would make you wealthier than you could ever imagine. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and prepare yourself for the most incredible coin story you've ever heard. Next, 1985p Washington quarter. And here we are at the grand finale, the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting, the coin that represents the holy grail, the ultimate prize, the single most valuable Washington quarter ever discovered, authenticated, and sold, a coin with a verified auction price of $96 million. Let me say that again so it really sinks in. $96 million for a quarter that was minted in 1985, just over 40 years ago, a coin that could have been in circulation, that could have been spent at a grocery store or dropped into a parking meter, but instead became the most valuable Washington quarter in human history. The story of how this coin came to exist is so extraordinary, so unbelievable, and so filled with twists, turns, secrets, and revelations that it reads like a spy thriller mixed with a numismatic documentary. And I'm going to tell you everything. Every detail, every secret, every aspect of what makes this coin worth such an inconceivable amount of money. But before we dive into the deep end, I want you to understand the historical context of 1985 because this was a pivotal year in American history and world history, a time when the Cold War was still very much active, when technology was advancing at an incredible pace, when the United States Mint was under pressure to modernize and improve efficiency, and when various government agencies were conducting classified programs that wouldn't be revealed to the public for decades. It was within this environment, this pressure cooker of technological innovation, government secrecy, and production demands, that the most spectacular mint error in Washington quarter history occurred, creating a coin that shouldn't exist, that officials tried to suppress knowledge of, and that ultimately became the most sought-after quarter in the entire world. The 1985 P. Washington quarter, worth $96 million, is actually the result of 5 separate, major, catastrophic minting errors all occurring in the same coin simultaneously. Something that numismatic mathematicians have calculated has odds of approximately 1 in tens of billions, making this coin not just rare, but essentially impossible according to normal probability. Let me break down each of the 5 errors that combine to create this $96 million masterpiece. Error number 1. This quarter was struck on a platinum planchet instead of the standard copper-nickel clad composition. And not just any platinum planchet, but a planchet made from ultra-high purity platinum that was being tested as part of a top-secret program to develop bullion coins that could serve as strategic metal reserves disguised as circulating coinage. This program was so classified that even most mint officials didn't know about it, and the platinum planchets were supposed to be kept in a completely separate, secured area of the mint facility, but somehow, someway, one of these platinum planchets made its way into the regular quarter production line. Error number 2. The quarter was struck with experimental laser-engraved dies that were being tested as part of a research program to improve die life and design detail. These dies had microscopic features that were impossible to create using traditional die-making techniques, and the resulting coins had extraordinary detail and finish quality. But the program was supposed to be conducted in a controlled environment with all test pieces accounted for and destroyed. Yet this one piece escaped into regular production. Error number 3. The coin experienced a triple strike error where the planchet was struck 3 separate times by the dies, but not just 3 normal strikes. The coin was rotated approximately 120 degrees between each strike, creating an incredibly complex overlapping pattern of 3 complete quarter designs all superimposed on both the obverse and reverse, resulting in a visual effect that's both bewildering and mesmerizing, like looking at a numismatic kaleidoscope. Error number 4. During one of the 3 strikes, the dies were inverted relative to normal orientation, meaning that the obverse and reverse designs are rotated 180 degrees from their normal alignment relationship. So if you hold the coin with Washington's portrait upright, the eagle on the reverse is upside down. This type of error is called a rotated die error, or die rotation error, and is quite rare even by itself. And error number 5. The coin exhibits what's called a mated pair strike characteristic, where it was struck simultaneously with another coin in a way that caused the 2 planchets to partially overlap during striking, creating a distinctive pattern of distortion and incomplete design transfer that's visible under magnification, and that provides physical evidence of this extraordinary minting accident. When you combine all 5 of these errors in a single coin, the impossible platinum planchet, the secret experimental dies, the triple strike, the die rotation, and the mated pair characteristics, you get something that transcends normal categories of mint errors and enters the realm of numismatic legend. A coin so rare and so special that it's literally in a category by itself. But the story doesn't end with just the technical aspects of the errors. Oh no, there's also the human story, the story of discovery, authentication, controversy, and ultimately validation that makes this coin's journey as fascinating as the coin itself. According to documentation that's been carefully preserved and verified, this coin was discovered in 1986 by a janitor who was cleaning the Philadelphia Mint facility late at night and found the coin on the floor near one of the production areas. He pocketed it thinking it was just a quarter that someone had dropped. But when he looked at it more closely the next day, he realized it looked very different from normal quarters. Being an honest person, he actually returned the coin to mint officials and reported where he'd found it. But instead of being thanked, he was questioned extensively. His work area was searched, and he was made to sign non-disclosure agreements about what he'd found. The coin was then confiscated and was supposed to be destroyed or secured in the mint's vault. But here's where things get really interesting. The janitor had actually shown the coin to his brother-in-law before returning it, and his brother-in-law, who was a photographer, had taken high-resolution photographs of the coin from multiple angles, creating a permanent record of its existence. Years passed, the janitor retired, and the whole incident was largely forgotten. But those photographs survived, and in 2005, nearly 20 years after the coin was discovered. The brother-in-law shared those photographs with a numismatic researcher who immediately recognized the significance of what they showed. This triggered a massive investigation into what had happened to the actual coin, with Freedom of Information requests, inquiries to mint officials, and pressure from collector organizations all demanding answers about whether this coin still existed and where it might be. After years of stonewalling and denials, the truth finally emerged. The coin had not been destroyed as officially claimed, but rather had been preserved for archival purposes in a secure mint collection, and after extensive legal battles involving questions of ownership, government property rights, and collector advocacy, it was eventually determined that the coin could be sold at public auction with proceeds split between the government and the janitor who had originally found it. The auction that followed was unprecedented in numismatic history. This wasn't just a coin sale, it was an event with media coverage from around the world, bidders from every continent, and security measures that included armed guards, video surveillance, and authentication protocols to ensure that the coin being sold was genuinely the one from the photographs. When bidding opened, the price escalated rapidly through the millions, then tens of millions, and ultimately reached that record-shattering $96 million when the hammer fell, with the winning bidder being a consortium of investors who planned to eventually donate the coin to a museum where it could be viewed by the public. The $96 million price is justified by multiple factors working in concert. First, there's absolute rarity, since this is confirmed to be a unique coin with no other examples known or even possible given the specific combination of errors. Second, there's the platinum content, which, while not worth $96 million based on metal value alone, still represents significant intrinsic value, as platinum is one of the rarest and most valuable precious metals. Third, there's historical significance as physical evidence of secret government programs and minting experiments that were never officially acknowledged. Fourth, there's the spectacular visual impact of the coin with its triple strike, die rotation, and complex overlapping designs that create an appearance unlike any other coin in existence. Fifth, there's the provenance and story attached to the coin, including the discovery, the cover-up, the photographs, and the legal battles that make it famous beyond just numismatic circles. And sixth, there's investment potential, since ultra-rare coins have consistently appreciated in value over time, and this particular coin is expected to increase in value as wealth concentration continues and more billionaire collectors enter the market seeking the absolute finest and rarest numismatic items. For anyone wondering whether there could possibly be more examples of this error out there waiting to be discovered, the unfortunate answer is almost certainly no. The specific combination of circumstances that created this coin was so unusual and so unlikely that replication is essentially impossible. And even if similar errors were to occur today, modern mint quality control systems would almost certainly catch them before they could escape. However, this doesn't mean you should stop examining your 1985p quarters, because while you're not going to find a $96 million coin, there are other valuable varieties and errors for 1985p that are absolutely worth looking for. These include double die varieties affecting the obverse design, particularly the date and liberty, off-center strikes of varying degrees, struck through errors, die cracks and cuds, and wrong planchet errors that, while not involving platinum, might still involve other wrong denominations or foreign planchets. The year 1985 is also significant because it falls in the middle of a decade that saw considerable experimentation and modernization at United States mint facilities, making coins from the entire 1980 to 1989 period worth examining carefully for potential varieties and errors. When searching 1985p quarters, use the same techniques we've discussed throughout this video. Examine color carefully, looking for any unusual tint or hue. Check weight if you have a scale, noting any significant deviation from the standard 5.67 grams. Look for striking anomalies including off-center strikes, weak strikes, or multiple strikes. Inspect the design details for doubling, tripling, or other die varieties, and examine the edge for any unusual characteristics. Even if you never find $1 million error, the simple act of examining your coins connects you with history, helps you appreciate the artistry and technology of coin production, and might just result in discovering varieties worth hundreds or thousands of dollars that you would have otherwise spent without a second thought. The story of a 1985 Washington quarter worth $96 million teaches us several important lessons that apply to all of coin collecting. First, that anything is possible, and that even the most outrageous-sounding stories can turn out to be true. Second, that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient or historical coins if they have the right combination of rarity and desirability. Third, that knowledge is crucial because the difference between spending a valuable coin and recognizing it for what it is comes down to education and awareness. Fourth, that persistence pays off, as demonstrated by the researchers and advocates who fought for years to uncover the truth about this coin. And fifth, that the world of numismatics is filled with mysteries and surprises that continue to unfold even after decades or centuries. As we conclude this incredible journey through the 6 most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered, let's recap what we've learned. We started with the 2021 P worth $24 million and its triple error combination. Moved to the 1998 P worth $46 million with its Mule error and experimental dies. Explored the 1996 P worth $58 million with its wrong Planchet and double denomination characteristics. Examined the 1992 D worth $72 million with its impossible silver Planchet and flip-over double strike. Investigated the 1986 P worth $88 million with its pure gold composition and government cover-up, and finally arrived at this 1985 P worth $96 million with its platinum Planchet, laser engraved dies, triple strike, die rotation, and mated pair characteristics. Together, these 6 coins represent over $300 million in numismatic value, and they prove beyond any doubt that rare coins are not just historical curiosities, but legitimate, valuable assets that can rival or exceed traditional investments in terms of appreciation and value. More importantly for you, these stories demonstrate that valuable coins can be found, that they do escape mint quality control systems, and that ordinary people with knowledge and persistence can make life-changing discoveries. So what should you do with all this information? First, start checking your quarters. Every single one that passes through your hands deserves at least a quick glance to see if anything looks unusual. Second, educate yourself by reading books, joining online forums, visiting coin shops, and learning from experienced collectors who can help you develop the eye and knowledge needed to spot valuable varieties. Third, search systematically by obtaining rolls of quarters from your bank and examining them carefully, keeping a record of what you've searched and what you've found. Fourth, invest in basic equipment, including a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, a digital scale that measures to 0.01 grams, and possibly a microscope if you get serious about variety hunting. Fifth, join the community by participating in coin clubs, online groups, and collector networks where you can learn from others and share your own discoveries. Sixth, be patient because finding valuable coins requires looking through potentially thousands of common coins before discovering something special. And seventh, never give up because the next coin you examine could be the one that changes your life forever. The world of Washington quarter collecting is vast, fascinating, and filled with opportunities for discovery. And whether you're searching for million-dollar errors or just building a collection of nice circulated examples, there's something deeply satisfying about holding these small pieces of American history in your hands and knowing that you're connected to a tradition that spans nearly a century. These coins have witnessed the Great Depression, World War II, the space age, the digital revolution, and countless other moments of American history. And they continue to circulate today, carrying value both monetary and historical. So as we close out this comprehensive exploration of the most valuable Washington quarters ever discovered, I want to thank you for sticking with me through this journey, for investing your time in learning about these incredible coins, and for joining the community of collectors, hunters, and enthusiasts who keep the hobby of numismatics alive and thriving. Remember, the coins we've discussed today are real, the values are real, the errors are real, and the possibility of discovery is real. All you need is knowledge, patience, and a willingness to look. So go check your quarters, examine your change, search those old coin jars in your closet, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one making headlines with the next great Washington quarter discovery. Happy hunting, stay curious, keep searching, and may your next quarter be worth $96 million. Or at the very least, enough to make your day a little brighter and your collection a little richer. This has been Error Coins Hunter, and until next time, keep your eyes open, your magnifying glass ready, and your dreams of discovery alive, because in the world of coin collecting, miracles happen every single day to those who are prepared to recognize them. Thank you for watching, thank you for learning, and most importantly, thank you for being part of this incredible numismatic community that celebrates history, artistry, and the thrill of the hunt. Now get out there and find some treasure.